Welcome, Jet fans, to another episode of the Jets Life podcast. We're here on our first victory Monday of the season as the Jets were able to defeat the Panthers handedly, 27 to nothing, thanks in large part to our Jets defensive line and our second wave, particularly missing Quinton Williams, missing John Franklin Myers, um, and missing Carl Lawson in this game. We're able to get pressure on the Panthers starting offensive line. This is kind of big news here. Haven't really seen the Jets defensive line, which has been raved about all season long, rightfully all off season long, and rightfully so. We haven't really seen them in person in live action against another team's starting unit. We got to see it for the first time, and we're very impressed. Will McDonald came in with another one of his spin moves, as he did in the opening game against the Cleveland Browns. Came with a spin move and got pressure early in the game. Jermaine Johnson and Bryce Huff shared a sack, and then Quentin Jefferson came in with a sack from the interior, which was a big reason why the Jets added him because of his high pressure rate from the inside. So he'll fit in nicely next to Quinton Williams in potential passing situations. So yes, the Jets defensive line did exactly what we were hoping for. They keep moving, they keep manhandling, offensive lines. In this case, it's against another team, so definitely a pleasant surprise. So glad that we were able to see that. In addition to that, another big item to talk about is the progress of Zach Wilson in this game. So in the first game, went 3 for 5, small sample size, but in this game, he was able to complete roughly 70% of his passes for 123 yards, and he did end the first half with a touchdown. So he went through the entire first half mistake free. Looked like a competent quarterback, which is really at this stage what we're really expecting the best out of the second overall pick. I mean, we would hope he continues to progress. As we've discussed previously, we're really just hoping that Zach continues to kind of move along in that right direction. Whatever happened in the past is in the past. At this point, we're looking for somebody who we can rely on should any sort of injury happen to Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers has to miss a couple of games. Can we rely on Zach Wilson to kind of ride the ship for a couple of games? Which, based on what happened at the end of last season, that was a major question mark heading into the season. I would expect moving forward that the Jets are going to continue to challenge Zach Wilson, maybe a little bit more, give him situations where you're throwing the ball down the field because a lot of his passes did not even exceed that like intermediate 10 to 15 yard range. I think a lot of his passes were short, intermediate routes. But that's a big building block for him because last year he was not making those completions nearly as much as he should have been. Coming out of college, his accuracy was a big plus. That hasn't translated to the NFL for whatever reason. Is it a case of the yips? Who knows? But for whatever reason, in this past game and even in the first game, if you include that as well, he's been accurate. He's been making the throws he needs to make, and that's a huge step compared to where we were at last year. Um, and one his touchdown in the first half came to Kenny Yeboah, which um, another bright sign that the tight ends actually do exist in the NFL, and for the Jets especially. Last year, I think Uzama and Conklin combined for 2 touchdown receptions. In this game alone, there were 3 touchdowns to tight ends. Yeboah had one, um, Zach Kuntz had one, and I believe it was EJ Sheldon. Don't forget the name of the other tight end that caught a touchdown pass. So obviously, kind of a big statement there. This is something that Aaron Rodgers has done in Green Bay for a very long time. Tight ends usually appreciate him because he gets into that red area and gets them the ball, and they're able to make plays and get into the end zone. So this is something that we're seeing translate over from Green Bay with Nathaniel Hackett and Aaron Rodgers coming to the Jets, and these tight ends are making a name for themselves, getting these touchdowns. Now, obviously, I named the players that had the touchdowns. None of these guys are really expected to be high contributors during the regular season. So to see it coming out of the second, the third stringers or wherever have you, where these guys line up on the depth chart, to see it coming from them, you can only kind of envision that that's going to be a little bit more of a staple with guys like Conklin, Uzama, and possibly even Jeremy Ruckert playing significant roles. So you would, again, something that you would expect is going to be, escalated a little bit higher going into the regular season. Now I mentioned Zach Kuntz, and he wasn't the only rookie to kind of make a name for himself and make a statement in this game. A couple other players I want to point out. Izzy Abonaconda had a second straight game with a touchdown. He scored the only touchdown in the Hall of Fame game. He continues that. Actually, sorry, Izzy was cut short on that touchdown. It ended up going to one of the tight ends later on, but he's making a statement for himself. He's kind of shown that ability to make guys miss, make the first guy miss. That's a big attribute that the Jets like in their running backs. Michael Carter was also very productive in this game from a elusiveness standpoint, making that first guy miss. Um, I mentioned Kuntz with his touchdown, and another guy I want to really kind of point out here, and I'm a little bit on board on the Zaire Barnes train. Never really heard of this guy coming out of college. Was kind of a shock pick. Didn't even have much highlight film, from my understanding, when he got drafted. So really wasn't much to kind of base this guy off of. But what I saw, and what you know I think was very visible is this guy's has a nose for the football. He's constantly kind of with his speed around the football. A big thing I noticed, there was a screen pass and he was able to get a tackle for loss. This has been a major problem for the Jets under Robert Saleh's tenure. A lot of it's due to kind of back off coverage. They'd much rather offenses get a couple yards in the screen game than give up a big play. The Saleh doesn't like to get the chunk plays, and because of that, screens have kind of been a little bit of an issue for this defense. Not that they've had many, but Zaire Barnes coming in there and being able to kind of diagnose and split defenders and get the tackle behind the line of scrimmage is a huge thing to see out of this guy. And a lot of people kind of forget, although Saleh praises defensive line and offensive lines, and that's like his number one priority. People forget that at Jacksonville he was a linebackers coach, so that he's kind of made a name and got his first real shot as a defense coordinator based on his ability to as a linebackers coach. You look at San Francisco; they drafted Fred Warner as a developmental linebacker, converted safety type of player, and now Fred Warner is one of, if not the best linebackers in the NFL. So Salah obviously has the ability to kind of progress and develop these linebackers, and I think that's a huge part of why the Jets have been, you know, I feel like every year they're drafting one of those mid round linebackers, hoping that someone develops. You went back to the first draft, they got Hamza and Jamian Sherwood. And then this year they get Zaire Barnes in the middle rounds. Definitely something to keep an eye on. This guy looks like he's the part a little bit. I know it's preseason, and I know it was against mostly backups. I didn't see him much in the earlier part of the game when the starters were in. Um, but definitely progress. You want to see that out of a late round pick, just being able to like someone that catches your eye when you're watching the game. And I think that's something that we saw out of him. What does that translate into? I don't think it's going to be much of something in the current season. But if this guy continues to progress, maybe someone that does develop into a starting guy next year, it's highly possible that CJ Mosley isn't on the team because of his high cap number. So the Jets are definitely going to be looking for bodies to fill in the middle of their defense. And is this someone that they can envision filling in his role? Obviously, you don't want to kind of make that distinction right now based off of one preseason game. But if he continues to progress, I think it could make Jets decisions a little bit easier when that decision does need to be made. But obviously, that's a conversation for another podcast, hopefully months and months from now. And last thing I want to just touch on from the game is the offensive line. It looked like, based on everything you were hearing and reading about from the media, is that the offensive line was getting just dismantled. Obviously, Brian Burns wasn't involved in this game. Didn't look like he was active at all. So that was something that was a big problem. It seemed like he was having an easy time getting around our tackles. But in this game, it looks like Mekhi Becton was able to get through 27 snaps. I know he gave up a sack early in the game. Not so worried so much about that aspect of it. He was strong in the run game. Was able to get to the second level in a couple of instances. That you just want to see him kind of progressing and showing that stamina and showing that ability to get through. more and more reps than he was in the previous game. Obviously, he went through only 7 reps in our opener against Cleveland. So, definitely making some strides as he's able to, put in 4 times the amount of reps than he did in the opening game. And Joe Tippmann, he did allow pressure in this game, based on stats. I looked at the game again, didn't see which pressure he gave up, but regardless, this is a guy coming in. He's gonna be backup center probably most likely entering into the season, but he's continuing his progress. The first game was amazing. This game was just as good. So you here's a guy that we're talking about being our future center, so you definitely want to see progress out of him. And he's shown to be athletic. Again, strong in the run game, pretty good. I mean, he's been fantastic in pass protection as well. So I'm super excited to see what he's got coming into the season. With the question marks on the offensive line, I don't think the Jets are really in a position to allow a good offensive lineman to not play. I strongly believe that Tippmann will be a starter. If it's not at center, possibly moving him to right guard with the idea of moving AVT to right tackle. Um, in my last podcast, I did bring up the musical offensive line positions and, a dream world of Zach Martin. And unfortunately, that dream will not come true. Dallas did come up with an agreement on a long-term extension with him, so that won't happen. I mean, it was kind of a reach, but in this particular situation where we're in win now mode, um, if he even was remotely possibly to become available, obviously the Jets would have made the phone call, but that's not something that we can talk about because he's sticking with Dallas. But sticking with the guys we have, right tackle cannot, in my opinion, I think the Jets cannot go into the season with the current situation that they have at offensive tackle. If Mekhi Becton can't start, I don't think the Jets can really put themselves in a situation where Billy Turner is the primary starter. I know there was a report from Zach Rosenblatt that the Jets consider consider Hunter the favorite to start. That doesn't seem like the smartest situation to go into the season. If he's going to be a backup, someone that you can rely on in a short period of time, similar like I was saying with Zach Wilson, I don't feel comfortable in a situation where Billy Turner is our primary starter. So like I still go back to the potential of this offensive line looking left to right being Dwayne Brown, Laken Tomlinson, um, most likely Connor McGovern, being the veteran, will get the start in center, in front of Aaron Rodgers. Right guard, I mentioned Tippmann. He's my kind of pick to be the starter at right guard. Maybe they go Wes Schweitzer, a guy that they picked up in the offseason, who's been having a pretty decent camp, and right tackle being AVT. He played there last year, played brilliantly, and I would expect that to continue if he's given that opportunity. And he's shown that he's willing to do whatever's best for the team. Not a you know not a greedy player at all, not a selfish player at all. He's going to do whatever's best, and honestly, that's best not only for the team but also for himself. Tackles are generally paid higher, so if he's turns out to be our primary right tackle, obviously down the road that would benefit him in contract negotiations with the team. Um, but again, good week overall. I mean, I know we had that little hiccup with the offensive line during the joint practice, but the Jets were able to get out there the next day when the practice was rained out. They got out there, practiced instead of with the Panthers. It was a team versus team practice. It would get that work in, and obviously whatever they did translated into the weekend. Able to defeat the Panthers 27-0. Huge building block week. And most importantly, going into tonight, Jets do have an off day today. They'll be practicing tomorrow, and then joint practices heading up Wednesday. Actually, I think that I read something today that Wednesday will be the only joint practice, and Thursday will be kind of a solo practice, just the team, similar like it was last week. Not sure what changed it, but I know both days were supposed to be joint practices, but they're doing one joint practice and one just team. So yeah, as we continue to progress through this season, through this preseason, Just want to keep seeing this team staying healthy, keep that injury report as minimal as possible. That's really your goal when you're going through these preseason games and getting as much of a look at these younger players that probably aren't going to get much of a playing time role during the regular season. So I think we got a lot of that in this last preseason game. Just want to see that continue to progress as we move forward. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the channel. Trying to get my channel built up a little bit here, so all of your support is highly appreciated. And most importantly, let's go Jets.